So good morning, everybody. My name is Natalia Zukerman. I am here with Wake Up with the Consciousness Cafe, part of SoulCall Ministries. Our guest this morning is my new friend, Bonnetta Adeeb, who does so many incredible things in the world, but I'm going to highlight just a few. And before I ask you question one, Bonnetta is the president of STEAM Onward, which is an organization founded to increase the number of minority and underserved youth pursuing higher education in STEM-related fields. STEM is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And if you go to STEAM Onward, is it .com? I'll put the
org.
.org. Wow, the programs that are listed under there, from anti-vaping, garden volunteer, Seed Hub, and Seed Hub became as this other work that she does as the commissioner of Cooperative Garden Commission, which is a grassroots collective working toward food sovereignty in response to the COVID-19 pandemic and persistent injustice. To date, Cooperative Garden Commission has provided free seeds to an estimated 12,000 gardens via 257 local seed hubs in 41 states. What is a seed hub?
A seed hub is an organization, an individual, a club, an organization that decides that they're going to take responsibility for supporting their neighbors, their friends, and people in their community to receive free heirloom seeds so that they can start their own gardens, their own urban farms, and help to provide food for themselves and their families.
And why this came about during the pandemic specifically, but goes back to food inequality and lack of access that we've had for many, many years. Can you talk a little bit about the access to seeds that is so hard to get and why that is?
Well, of course, as everything in the United States, everything that you see has been designed. Nothing's an accident. And the economy is designed to support those at the top and to keep revenue flowing into other people's pockets from everywhere. And so the seed distribution and food distribution system is very much like the environmental justice system. And, every aspect of American society is set up so that it advantages certain communities and disadvantages others. We have been working on environmental justice issues, looking at the location for Superfund sites where people were really struggling due to environmental injustice issues. They're again being ignored by the environmental movement for, since its beginning. And all of a sudden people realized that right on top of that same area where we were looking at where people were suffering, here comes COVID, and you could just lay over the map the same areas that had bad air, that had bad soil, lead in the soil, the same areas that had flooding due to climate change, sea level rise, were the same communities that were hit most hard by COVID. So some farmers had seen this coming and had said, we kind of know what to do. During World War I and World War II, the government has supported what they call victory gardens, which was a patriotic duty of citizens to grow their own food. In that case, so food supplies could go to soldiers abroad. But in this case, it was no less of a blow to the society. We had thousands of people dying, and we had food lines that went on in perpetuity. People who had been gainfully employed were all of a sudden without work. People had never planned to see themselves in this situation. So we decided to take the resources we had, and many of the farmers who decided they wanted to take action were actually seed farmers. There was a large group of heirloom seed companies that said, well, we can no longer meet the public demand for seeds, but we can take what's in store and we can organize this group that can distribute it to communities most impacted by the food breakdown, the food distribution system. And so they donated seed in bulk to us, to our hub in Philly. And from there, the 257 and growing seed hubs took those bulk donations, broke them up into small packages, and distribute them to the communities that they served. For me, because my work is largely with educational groups, I had the youth that I was working with in the community. I was also on the advisory for the local health department and hospital, and on the public school advisory for environmental NAG programs. So I kind of had my natural vehicles in which I could reach communities in need. Communities such as Fairmont Heights High School, which is in a food desert inside the Beltway in Prince George's County. We had about 100 kids who were environmental and ag students who were stuck at home with nothing to do. So we said, let's get these kids some seeds and support them in starting their own homegrown science experiments. So they could, being on, Zoom calls all day, it was refreshing for them to get donations of seedlings and seeds. We also gave them grow bags. Soil conservation made donations of soil. And we got 120 gardens to this school. We did the same thing, made the same thing, offer available to food pantries, um, to urban farmers, and to senior citizens. Our focus was originally on senior citizens because we had heard of several people in our community who had passed away because they were afraid to leave their houses. They weren't getting proper nutrition. They didn't know how to interface with the getting medical help they needed. We were actually losing seniors that way. So we decided we have an association, we have a network. Let's see what we could do. So we originally thought we could reach between 30 and 50 homes, and we've reached over 400 so far.
That's incredible. And the map too, you can go to see it on the website, and it's this interactive map to see where all the seed hubs are. So if say I have a little bit of land here where I'm living, but if I have, maybe a community backyard, can I be a seed hub?
You can, anybody can. Um, Believe it or not, free food for all requires free seeds for all, right? So we'll supply the seeds and you supply everything else. It's your labor and your thinking and your networks and your community and the heart that you have to serve your community. That's what we require. And if you're willing, we're going to send you seeds, and then we'll support you because we have an amazing network of online classes, videos, workshops, lesson plans, curriculum, everything you can imagine that's set up to deal with farmers all the way from the person growing that parsley in a teacup to actually farmers and seed farmers, especially farmers who want to move over to some planet-friendly regenerative agriculture. I come from farmers, people who have been farming in the United States since 1710. I was taught that farmers were the smartest, most amazing people, and that smart farmers could provide for their families. So in my case, the farmers were successful, were able to grow some things that allowed them after the period of slavery to not have to sharecrop.
Right.
So many people think that that's one reason why the men in my family are so nice, because they weren't getting abused, so they didn't abuse their families. So the love and the respect for farmers is something that is a part of my heritage. And we always had a garden. We always ate fresh greens every day, which is part of our Southern tradition. Have those green leafy vegetables, and cornbread, and fried fish on Friday night. Eating our traditional foods and making sure that whatever was in excess was given to those in need. We had a large what they called a truck farm when I was a child, which is a lot near my house. And my earliest memories of my grandfather bringing the plow horse there. He would have that field plowed up and plant fruit and mostly vegetables, and we would get in the car and go door to door to people in need in the community. So I thought that's what people of faith did.
Mm.
as they shared what they had, their bounty and their knowledge with those in need. So I'm following in my family tradition, I
So you
believe.
thought that's what they did. It implies that there was a moment where you realized maybe that's not what people do. That's what your people did.
That's what my people did.
Yeah. So you're carrying on that tradition, but then seeing all the inequality and how Black, Indigenous, people of color haven't been able to own land still. To
Well,
this,
they lost land. The same stories were in my family. You know, I had a uncle who, excuse me, I had an uncle who bought a beautiful property in North Carolina. Oh, it was in South Carolina, in Rock Hill, South Carolina. And he was a very successful farmer, provided very well for his family. When he went to make the last payment on his mortgage and asked for the mortgage, the people at the company said, "What mortgage?" So they, uh, had no knowledge of the payments that he had been making for years and years. And, it destroyed him. It broke his heart to lose something that he valued. Because you can imagine in those periods of time after the Civil War, for a Black man to be able to earn enough money to buy property and then to be successful and pay off a mortgage was a lifetime achievement. And to have that snatched away from him. So, I heard as a child the story of how important it was for God, for you to, be blessed and have your own land, to have your own home, to own your own home. And I must say, it was actually one of the only ways you could protect yourself was to be a homeowner. So the story was the night riders would ride, but if it was your property, if you owned it, you could drop them at the door when they came off over that threshold if you own that home. So it was the only way to really provide for your family was to be a landowner and to be independent when it comes to food and then to do by your children. Send your children, do as much as you could for them. And so this was the tradition I had. I came to understand that for many families, they lost that tradition. But I find they get real excited when I connect them up with their seed stories. We can rekindle that joy and their love for the land and the planet and for their traditions and for information that their ancestors did love them. Did I tell you the story about the seeds in the hair? Did I tell you that story?
no.
So it was common that when a child was being taken away from a mother and placed onto a slave ship, that mothers would weave seeds in their hair and sew them into the garments of their clothes and those small amulets they would have around their neck. Even in New York City, you live in New York, right? In New York City, down in Wall Street, where they found the burial grounds of the slaves, they found pouches with seeds and amulets around their necks. Why? Because mothers wanted their children to be able to survive when they got to this strange place. They didn't know what was going to happen to their children when they left home, but they wanted them to be able to survive and thrive when they got to wherever that place was. So when I tell that story to a lot of African American children, they cry and they're surprised to know that African mothers loved them and wanted them to do well. And these are such important stories to tell because this society has worked so hard to disconnect us up with anything that would give us pride and respect for ourselves and our ancestries, and to just put an okra seed in a child's hands or in an adult's hands and say, this is your heritage. This is something that has been carried throughout generations. And it really empowers communities a lot, these amazing seed stories. So I try to share them and I plan to do this for the rest of my life. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have those stories, history, her stories to bring forth to empower and convince people you can do it.
Yeah.
You can take your life into your own hands. So we need to use those tools that God has given us to encourage and to employ others to do and get up off their high knees and get to
Yeah. Thank you
work.
so much. You're just
Thank you.
incredible font of knowledge and of such a powerhouse in this world. The work that you're doing is incredible. How can our community get involved in what you're doing?
We would love to have you involved. If you would consider going to coopgardens.com. Coopgardens.com is a connection of about 2,000 individuals like me and you that have decided that we have the power to do more and be more and help our fellow citizens, our friends and family. So in March, about 2,000 people got together and said, I can help, I can do this, I have tools. Somebody had land, some people had knowledge, some people had seeds, some people had some financial resources. People came together and created this groundswell. And the honest truth was, we didn't know where this would go. I mean, I remember even this summer, it was like, can we get out a fall donation of seeds? So we contacted the seed hubs and they said, yeah, we want seeds for the fall. So, and of course, we did talk about seed saving. You know, there's some skills that come because once we hand you heirloom seeds, you can pass those on for generations. I mean, those seeds were passed to us. Um, I think it was Rowan White that says, our seeds do not belong to us. We only borrowed them from our grandchildren. We are the stewards of those seeds. And so, and she encourages people to put together a bundle of seeds, heirloom seeds that you pass on to the generations coming. I have a 2.5-year-old grandson, and I'm building this bundle of heirloom seeds that he can pass on to generations ahead and keep this legacy going. So he can be proud as I am proud of who I am. And I mean, my history may seem checkered to some people, but it's pretty darn amazing to me.
I think it's amazing to anybody hearing this. So much for sharing some of that with us. And I'm going to go get started on my garden right now.
Right now, order some seeds. You can order some seeds
So
right
much.
now. Free
Yeah,
seeds.
go order them and
Uh-huh.
it's amazing work. Thank you, Anita.
And pass it on.
See you soon. Bye bye.
Thank you.